So, hey there, welcome back to Accelerated Real Estate Investor. Hey, I am so excited to be back with you. So grateful for your time that you carved out a few minutes to spend with me today. Today, I'm interviewing Jeff Holst. Jeff is a recovering attorney and now full-time real estate investor. Jeff has an amazing story that back when he was 30 years old, he checked the last item off of his bucket list, climbing Machu Picchu. And he was on top of the world looking down at the Incan city, realizing that at 30 years old, he was living the life of his dreams. He had swam with sharks in Belize. He had been to the pyramids in Egypt. He had been well-traveled to the point where he climbed the top of Mount Sinai and backpacked through Europe. As an active attorney, he was married and had a beautiful wife and house in the suburbs and a thriving law practice. But 2 weeks later, Jeff realized he was lying in the hospital dying from leukemia. His business was in array, and even though he was an active practicing bankruptcy attorney, he now found himself filing for bankruptcy. Over a decade later, at 41 years old, Jeff now owns over 200 units of residential properties and commercial buildings. For the last 4 years, he's focused on his value-add apartment portfolio and apartment strategy, buying properties between 10 units to 50 units. He is the host of the Old-Fashioned Real Estate Show, where he drinks bourbon old fashions and talks about real estate investing. In this episode of Accelerated Investor, you're going to hear from Jeff on how he buys properties with JV partners who fund the entire deal, and Jeff still gets to keep 50% of all of the profits, cash flow, and equity, and how he's able to do deals with no money down. Jeff is also going to challenge you to living your best life right now. And as a leukemia survivor, speaking to me as a pancreatic cancer survivor, we can both attest to this amazing life that we live now because of the pains and the suffering that we went through in the past. And Jeff's also going to talk about the mindset shift from going from a transactional attorney to a long-term real estate investor. We also have a great fun conversation about his move to Puerto Rico. You're going to love this interview on the Accelerated Real Estate Investor podcast with Jeff Holst.
Welcome to the Accelerated Real Estate Investor podcast with Josh Cantwell. If you're looking to retire early with forever passive income, you're in the right place. This podcast is the go-to destination for real estate investors, both active and passive, and multifamily apartment investors, new, intermediate, and advanced. Now, sit back, listen, learn, and accelerate your business, your life, and your investing with the Accelerated Real Estate Investor podcast.
So, hey, Jeff, listen, so excited to have you on Accelerated Real Estate Investor. I know on your show, you guys like to get drunk and talk about real estate. We're sober for this one, but thank you so much for jumping on today.
I know it's more fun when you're drunk, Josh, I promise.
I'm sure it is. I've got a volleyball tournament to drive to in about 2 hours.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to, you got to
I don't want to drink and drive, yeah. But once I get to the hotel, I can have a couple pops later on tonight to get ready for tomorrow. So thanks for jumping on the show, Jeff. And you know what? When I kind of meet somebody new, interview somebody new, I always like to hear, like, what are they working on right now that they're excited about, that they're going to make money with, and kind of gets their juices going. So what are you up to?
Oh, man, I haven't told anyone this yet, so you get to be the first person to hear it. Yeah, I'm planning on moving to Puerto Rico.
Oh, why? Okay, tell us about it.
Yeah, so, I went to Puerto Rico a couple weeks ago, and my wife and I have said for a while that we want to move to the Caribbean. And I was in Puerto Rico. I was meeting with a couple of real estate guys I know that live there, and they were telling me about the tax advantages and some other stuff. And I was like, why don't I just do it now? Like, why am I waiting? Right. So it's going to take me a little bit because it's sort of a process, right, to get there. Sure. But I think early next year, 2022, I'm going to live in San Juan.
Nice, fantastic. So for our audience that might not know about the tax advantages and some of the exciting stuff that's, advantageous for Puerto Rico, just elaborate on that a little bit. What are some of the reasons, the financial reasons to go?
Yeah. So, I mean, besides the fact that it's, the Caribbean and oceans and all that stuff, right? Because that's the real reason to go. I just want to live, I need more ocean in my life, but the tax advantages. So if you're a mainland US person and you go to Puerto Rico, you can apply for something called the Act 60 grant. It's a tax grant that they offer. There's a bunch of different categories, but the long and short of it is if you start a business in Puerto Rico, you can actually in many cases get that business subject to a 4% corporate tax rate and 0% personal taxes on income sourced in Puerto Rico through that company. So you pay like an effective tax rate of 4% and no federal US taxes, which you can't do anywhere else in the world because anywhere else in the world, the U.S. says, no, you owe us the taxes anyway. But because Puerto Rico is part of the U.S., they have a special status that allows them to do that. So
I've heard about this, but I haven't done any personal research. So are you telling us that we can buy and flip properties in various parts of the U.S. and then essentially file that business in Puerto Rico?
Yeah,
help us understand that.
Yeah. So it does. So to be clear, like I'm not an expert on this at all. I'm just starting to learn about it, and it's not the only reason I'm moving. Like I have friends in Puerto Rico. I love the country itself.
Yeah.
So there's 0% capital gains tax in Puerto Rico, long and short-term capital gains. 0%.
Wow.
As long as you qualify under the act, right?
Yeah.
Which means you have to be from the US and there's some steps you have to go through. You have to donate a certain amount to Puerto Rican charities. You've got to pay a fee to the government. So it's not completely free, but there's some significant advantages. But technically money that you make in the US is still taxed on US tax rates. So if you flip something in the United States, and you have a gain on it, that money was sourced in the United States. Now, what a lot of people do on stuff like that is because they're performing some of the work while they're in Puerto Rico, because you have to actually live there. You have to be there more than half the year, 183 days minimum a year. If you were flipping and doing like some kind of consulting with your flipping company, you can charge those consulting fees to your Puerto Rican company, thereby lower your tax obligations in the US, but you're not going to eliminate it completely.
Yeah.
But for sure you can get a lot of advantage, especially if you do like I do, right? I mean, I have some podcasts and some other consulting work that I do that wherever it works in my head. So if I live in Puerto Rico, the money's earned in Puerto Rico.
And you're having a cerveza on the beach. It's Puerto Rican beach, the brain power is still working on the Puerto Rican.
Exactly. It depends on how many cervezas you have, though, right?
Right. That's awesome, Jeff. So help us understand a little bit more about your money-making strategy with real estate. I know you have close to 150 residential rental properties, some commercial buildings. What's your favorite form of real estate investing? I know you've done many different things.
Sure.
Help us understand what you own, how you do it. How did you kind of not fall into it, but how did you kind of start to focus on that niche that you like?
Yeah. So the last couple of years, like basically since 2017, we focused on a value add multifamily strategy. But we kind of go into a niche that's different than most people. So the big syndicators, they're all buying 100 unit, 150 unit, 200, 300 unit. We're not targeting those. And most of your mom and pop people get about $1 million purchase price, they start getting queasy. So we kind of try to go in between there. So we're buying like 10 to 40 unit buildings that are, maybe $1 million to $4 million in that range.
Yeah, I love that niche.
And a lot of people are staying away from it. It's just too small for the big guys and it's too big for the little guys. So there's less competition. And then when we do the value add stuff, we're buying stuff that's from people that are overwhelmed or they're tired. We fix it up. And usually 18 months, 2 years, we're refinancing, pulling all of our money out and still having the cash flowing asset. So
love it. So a couple things around that. So we do very similar. We the biggest building we own is 730 units. We just bought a 552 unit in Houston, but I also own a 16 unit. I'm buying a 52 unit next week. And so we just like stuff that cash flows. I really don't care how big or small, right? But help us understand, like if you could kind of walk us through a real deal or a hypothetical deal, give me some numbers, kind of bring it to life. Like what does a deal look like that's in that 10 to 40 unit range? The reason I love that niche also is because you could still get Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, long-term non-recourse funding when you're over $1 million, $1.5 million in loan value. So there's a lot of benefits to that.
Yeah.
But give it some life. So tell our audience about a deal you've done or a deal you're looking at.
Yeah, well, so we just closed a 20 unit building here in Chattanooga where I live in January. So we've had it for about 2 months now. We paid I think it was like 1.16 for it. We had a little bit of a discount. It was originally 1.2, but we got a discount. So, I mean, it was, pretty cheap on a per door basis. I mean, it was tired. The average rents over there, and these are 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, the laundry hookup, central heating and cooling, the whole thing. Right. And the average rent was like $500. It should have been $900 to $1,000 rents. So we're able to pick that up. I mean, it's tired. It needs full renovation, but full renovation means cosmetic stuff, right? Structurally, everything's good. So, $8,000-$10,000 a unit, put another $200,000 into the property and maybe a little exterior stuff, and you've got a $2 million property. So that's kind of the strategy on that one. And we actually we took a few partners in on that, so we only kept half of it for ourselves. But
Sure.
But I mean, it's a deal where we expect to be able to refinance. We got an interest only loan. Actually, we took a local bank loan, interest only for 18 months, and we expect to refinance before the 18 months and pull out all the capital.
My newest and most powerful real estate investing book, The Flip System, is now available. And for a limited time, you can grab your free copy at getflipsystem.com/podcast. Using the same proven principles, secrets, and investing strategies I'm sharing in this book, I've been able to personally close over 750 highly profitable real estate deals over the last 15 years, make over 400 private lender loans, raise over $30 million of private money, and acquire over 2,000 units of apartments. Get my newest book now for free for a limited time at getflipsystem.com/podcast. That's getflipsystem.com/podcast.
Have you thought about like the move to Puerto Rico? This has got to be like the wheels turning in your mind. Move to Puerto Rico, you're there for 183 days out of 365, but you own your assets, your properties back here in the States, Chattanooga, etc. Tell me about what's going through your mind as far as managing that stuff virtually, property management. How are you going to handle the portfolio while you're gone?
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate. I have really good partners that aren't moving to Puerto Rico, so that helps a lot, right? So
you got the long straw, the short straw that you got to leave, and they got to stay. Okay.
So I actually invest in Michigan as well, and I'm from Michigan originally, and I have a partner up there. He owns a property management company, and he manages our stuff. So it's pretty hands off on that, and we have about 100 units up there and about 100 down here. So I'm pretty balanced between the two. And then my partner here from my old fashioned real estate show, the one that you referenced at the beginning there, Brian, he has a property management company as well. So his company manages our stuff here. So I actually don't involve myself that much in the day to day. My role is more on underwriting and coordinating stuff and deal sourcing. So as long as I'm still networking a fair amount, I think it'll be reasonably okay. And I'm anticipating being in Puerto Rico. I'm going to meet different people. I'm going to be exposed to different opportunities. Yeah. So I think it'll be reasonably easy to make that transition.
Yeah, I think the lesson there is right. Like with multifamily and with real estate, the team is what it's all about. You don't have to be involved every day to still create an amazing lifestyle and financial freedom. And for those of our listeners who think like, I've got to be involved every day, I've got to do everything. I just had a coaching call with a coaching student of mine, and for an hour, we're talking about how she's doing everything in her business. And I just want to, she's going to hear this. Her name is Jill. I'm like, I just want to punch myself in the head to think like, Jill, you've got to find an executive coordinator. You've got to find a property manager. You've got to find an operations manager. You're not going to make less money. You're going to make more because there's so much business that's flowing through and it's just falling on the floor.
Oh yeah. And I did the same thing. I had similar, but related. I quit working in 2017. I had a full-time job before that, which actually is good because it forced me to not do everything in real estate. Right. Yeah. So the first 6 or 7 years I was investing in real estate, I didn't have the time to do everything. But when I quit working, it freed up my time to find so many more deals. We've just it's like been pouring gasoline on a fire, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. And I know people that are in Jill's situation that have hired that person. to take over some of their roles, and like almost immediately they doubled or tripled their income.
Yeah, absolutely. But you let somebody else handle the day-to-day, kind of coordinate and do the back office type of stuff, so you could just do the revenue producing activities of finding deals, finding money. Like that's where it's at, man. That's where the money is made. So Jeff, what is you own residential rentals, you flip properties, you own commercial, value adds been your kind of flavor the last. What's the favorite deal that you've ever done? Does one stand out?
Well, I like to say, it's the first deal I ever did, because that's what, feels the best, right? Because if you didn't do that one, you didn't do any of them, right? But we did this 41 unit building up in Michigan. I think we've had it just about 2 years now. We bought it in May, so it's just almost 2 years, because it's April right now. I don't know when this will come out, but so we had it just about 2 years. And last year, in the summer, so 6 months ago, we refinanced it. We bought this thing for $1.8 million, and they gave us a cap on the loan at $2 million, and it appraised at almost 2.95 million. And we didn't put any extra money in. This was just from the cash flows to renovate it, and we were able to get a couple $100,000 more than we put into it back out in 18 months. I mean, it's unbelievable, really. I mean, and on that deal, what I like the most about it is we took another partner in that put up the money, and he loaned it to our company. So I actually had $0 in, and I own a quarter of that thing. It's got, $1 million in equity, and I got money back at the refinance. Yeah. So I got money out. I'm getting cash flow. It's still cash flows at a 1.8 debt coverage ratio. Nice. So it's just a cash machine. I own a quarter of it, and I didn't put any money in. So I got to love that one the most, I think.
Oh, that is a fantastic deal. Thanks for telling us about that. So Jeff, how did you're having all the success now, value add, you got 200 doors, things going on, going to San Juan, Puerto Rico, a lot of things that a lot of people would look and say, wow, this guy's really kind of living his life, and his move is going to be in the Caribbean. But you had gotten started from somewhere. You graduated from college, you became an attorney, you thought that was the way to create a great job and make a lot of money and create financial freedom, but it didn't really work out that way. And you ultimately fell in love with real estate. So tell us about because you have that very traditional story like I did, like go to college, get a job, start as a lawyer. I was a financial planner. It worked out great, but it was very unfulfilling because it was just about how much money I could make, and I was working a bazillion hours. Then you made the pivot to real estate. So help me understand your backstory and your pivot.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, but I'll do my best to make a short version of it. All right, so I went to law school, graduated, did really well in law school. I was even the graduating class speaker, all that stuff. So I started this little law firm.
Party pants.
Yeah, I mean, I know I wasn't the smartest, but there was a little bit of a voting element there, and I graduated early, so there wasn't as much competition. But anyway, so I got done with that. I got an MBA also, and so I did a business degree on top of that. And I started. I took over a small firm. My dad had been a bankruptcy attorney, so I took over his bankruptcy firm, and I was doing bankruptcies. This is 2007, right? So I got a television commercial. I hired another lawyer. And we were killing it. I mean, 2008, we filed 450 bankruptcies in 2008, right? Wow. Actually, by August of 2008, we were at over 400 bankruptcies. And I had this sort of short list of things. Like when I decided to become a lawyer, it was because I had gone on this I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went to Europe, and I went on this quest to sort of figure out what I wanted to do. I remember one day I was sitting on the steps of this church looking down at the Coliseum, and I just went, you know what? I like old stuff. I'm just going to go make some money and travel. That was like the whole goal, right? I didn't know what I want to do. My dad was a lawyer, so I went, I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to take over his firm. I'm going to make money, and I'm going to travel. And I made a little list of places I wanted to go. And I was 30 years old in 2008. And the last thing on that list was Machu Picchu in Peru. So in August, I went down to Machu Picchu, same kind of thing. I'm sitting on the top of the mountain, looking down at the city, and I'm going, I still don't really know what I want to do with my life, Right. But everything was good. I mean, I had a house in the suburbs, and, my wife and I were happy, and we had our dogs, and all this stuff was going great. And I literally walked off of the mountain, checked my voicemail on a payphone, and it was the attorney that worked for me, left me a voicemail saying he was putting in his 2-week notice. And I was like, whoa, I'm gonna have to figure that out now, because we're super busy, right? And I'm going from 2 attorneys to 1. And I came home and I had pneumonia, and I went to the ER, and I got diagnosed with leukemia that night.
Wow.
Like 2 weeks from like top of the world, like everything's perfect, to now I have 0 attorneys working for me, right? I can't work. He quit. And I didn't have any money coming in, and like $7,000 a week going out the door to cover the expenses at the office. And the whole thing just crumbled super, super fast.
Wow.
And it's because I didn't have any investments. I was making great money, but it was all from my labor. And it actually drove me into personal bankruptcy. So I was a bankruptcy attorney who went bankrupt. Yeah. And I was just like, I remember sitting in front of the bankruptcy trustee thinking to myself, and I've been here 1,000 times and now I'm doing it myself. I got to do something different. Yeah. And so I took a job, made like, less than $1,000 a week. I don't remember. It was like a reasonable job, but it wasn't amazing. Moved to Chattanooga, just said, I'm not practicing law anymore. I'm going to figure out a different strategy. And I need to figure out how to make money, because I thought I might die, right? I still was sick. Yeah. And I wanted to make sure my wife had money when I was gone, right? So I just said, well, the only thing I know that makes money no matter what is real estate. So I'm just going to start buying real estate. Yeah. Had no money, no credit. And it was 2010. And I saved up like $20,000 and bought a condo with a friend of mine in Detroit, 50-50 for cash. It was a $100,000 foreclosure that we bought for 30 from the bank. Yeah, it was one of those deals because stuff was crazy then. And then we just kept reinvesting all the money. And as I got bonuses, I put it into the real estate. And then we started doing some private money stuff because we had to, didn't have a choice, no credit, no money. Yeah. And we borrowed one private investor loaned us about $1 million interest only over the next 2 years. And that really gave me the ability to get a bunch. And so in 2017, when I switched to multifamily and I quit my job, I had about 60 units of residential, but it was all paid off single family stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So go from, I think I've got it figured out, Machu Picchu to very sick and very broke.
Yeah.
To real estate as a path to long-term wealth. And it's funny, some people just have this epiphany where they're just going to move in to take the long game. Other people have a life event like you did that takes them into the long game. But out of all the interviews I've done, all the people I've met, the people I've coached and taught, consulted with, people that have coached me, it seems like there's this overarching theme that when we're in the business to make money, it's very transactional. It's very hamster wheel stuff. And eventually that comes to a screeching halt somehow, some way. That's the overarching theme I hear again and again. Yeah. And then when people take the long-term approach, like family offices that I talk to, they're like, we invest for 3 generations from now. So you got to take that long-term approach. When I started thinking along those same lines, it's like, I've got so much more free time. I've got so much more happiness. I don't care if I make a little bit less money in the front end because I'm stacking up all these incomes. And it's so freeing. Like, how free did you feel in 2017 when you're like, now I've kind of got it figured out, but I've got it kind of permanently figured out, not transactionally figured out?
Yeah, no, it's amazing, right? So in 17, the company I was working for was selling to a bigger company, and they offered me a job at this big corporation, and I was like, man, it would have paid really well, but I didn't want to work for a big corporation. Didn't even really want to work for a small one, right? But so I just went, I'm gonna just take. They gave me 6 months severance, and I thought I'll just take the 6 months off. I don't think I had enough income from real estate then that I could have never went back to work, because I still have leukemia and I have this very expensive drug that I have to take. So I needed to have good insurance. So I had to figure that out. And I just kind of went, I'm just going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. Yeah. And then after about a week, I got bored of sitting by the pool. And I started going, well, you know what? It's really cool not to have to work. So I should help other people not to have to work. And that's why we got into doing like the real estate show and stuff. Was just, I wanted to help people and give back. And it turns out, as soon as I started giving back, opportunities just appeared out of nowhere. Like if you go into that, like, I'm going to help people mode, your life gets better really fast.
Are you ready to automate and explode your real estate investing? We're searching for extremely motivated individuals who are sick and tired of wasting time and want to finally see real results from their real estate investing business. We're searching for investors looking to get to the next level and become a bigger, better version of themselves while being a more successful real estate investing entrepreneur. Apply for mentoring and coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast. That's joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast.
I was just going to ask you, Jeff, like now that you've gone through this process, this journey, being at the top, being at the bottom, coming back, what kind of advice would you give your younger self, like the former self that was in the middle of all this? You'd punch yourself in the face and say, do it this way or do this differently. Or, you know, our audience that's listening, like they're going to be thinking like, well, what can I do different? What would you say to yourself, or what would you say to our audience is something that you've learned along the way that's been impactful?
So there's actually two things that I think are really important. The first thing is, I think the secret to life, and I didn't realize this right away, it's something to do with what you're saying about building multi-generational wealth, but it's really about figuring out how to buy back your time as soon as possible so that you don't have to do something, right? Like for me, I actually kind of liked practicing law. It wasn't that bad. I didn't love it, but sometimes I'm tempted to go back and practice law now, and I don't have to, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, I know that I can do it if I want, but I don't have to. And so, look, if you can figure out how to buy back your time, that really matters. And then, you know, from a real estate perspective, that means, you know, don't wait. Like a lot of people are going, oh, the market's really hot right now, I can't find deals. And I get that. It's tougher now than it was in 2010. But if I had started buying real estate in 2005, 4, 3, 2, you know, one of those years when I was reading, you know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and like thinking about real estate and watching Carlton Sheets on late night television, right? I mean, if I had started then, when I got sick, I wouldn't have been bankrupt and I would have been in a completely different spot now. I'd be much wealthier for one, but also I wouldn't have had to go through that pain, right? And I don't regret it because like I learned a lot through that process. But if I could do it over again, I'd skip that. I mean, just like I think everyone would skip getting leukemia if they could, right? But I don't regret that I have it. It's not, you know, it is one of those things where like it's caused me to become a different person, and what I've learned from it is amazing. And you know, and it doesn't even for people that aren't interested in real estate, the buying back their time and doing the things that they want. And I think the most important thing is you can't bank on your health. You can't bank on the future. So if you have some hopes, dreams, desires, goals, you know, just some kind of aspiration of any kind, you just got to go do it now. Just don't wait. Make today the day you do it, not someday.
Fantastic advice, Jeff. As a pancreatic cancer survivor myself.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I was diagnosed in 2011, had a massive surgery in 2011. Doctor basically saved my life on the operating table. And it made me think entirely different about how I look at life, how I look at relationships, investing for the long term, but doing everything that I really love right freaking now, right?
Yeah.
Not waiting till tomorrow, not waiting till next year. It's like there's our ways to do everything you ever want to do, whether it's travel, whether it's family, creating new relationships, repairing old relationships that are broken. Like, do it now, because nobody ever goes to sleep and then wakes up the next day and says, yeah, I'm probably going to get diagnosed with cancer tomorrow.
Yeah.
Nobody.
No. And having gone through that a couple of times now, I'll tell you, it's never fun, but it also isn't necessarily the end of your life, but it is a good focusing event, right? I mean, and that's what I have this thing I call the last life ever philosophy. And actually I have a show called that too, Last Life Ever. But the idea is that you only live this one time, and you really owe it to yourself, your family, your community, and even the world to live the best possible version of that life. Because it's bigger than just like, I want to travel more, I want to like be famous. It's like, if you live the best version of your life, that's whatever that means to you. That's what charities do you want to support? Do you want to start a charity? What causes are important to you? How do you want to leave a legacy? Do you want to create wealth that can protect your kids? Because I mean, listen, if you didn't have to, you know, the secret to life, buy back your time. That's what I said, right? Mm-hmm. Well, what if your parents made it so you had the time to reach the self-actualization right out of the gate? Yeah. Right? How much easier is your life? No, I don't mean like make it so easy for your kids that they become lazy, because that's not the point, right? But if you have to struggle to pay your bills, to buy food, to pay for your house, you can't do bigger and better things. And that's why buying back your time is so important. You can start doing those things that really matter to you. And so if you can get into that mode and start doing those great things, the big things, you're going to make the whole world better.
Yeah.
And that's the secret.
Fantastic stuff, Jeff. So let's jump into the last part of the show, right? The Fast Five. Appreciate all that advice. That was fantastic. So the Fast Five, give me the fastest answer you can, 15 to 30 seconds or less. Question number one, what's your favorite way to find great real estate deals?
It's just networking, all networking.
Got it. Favorite way to find capital or joint venture partners to close and fund your deals?
Same answer.
Networking. Love it. What's your favorite book that you've ever read, that you've gotten a lot out of, or favorite piece of advice that somebody's ever given you?
That's a tough one. My favorite book, excluding the Bible, probably Michael Crichton's Travels, the science fiction author's autobiography.
Oh, wow. Love it. I've never heard of that one before. I'll have to check
That's great.
that out.
You should read it. I read it like 5
Absolutely.
times.
Jeff, where's your favorite place to go to decompress, de-stress, and relax?
Under the ocean. I love scuba diving. Yeah, I love being under the water. Yeah.
Where's your favorite place you've ever scuba dived? What's
Well, the Great Barrier Reef's really great. I mean, it's hard to argue with that, but actually I would say I went cenote diving, which is like underground freshwater caves in the Yucatan. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Sounds like you're living a great life, man. I love this interview. I love hearing your story and your energy. Last question is, who do you think's had the biggest impact on your life? Maybe it was a mentor, a coach. Who's had the biggest impact on your life personally, and why?
So, that's a tough question. I was thinking about that before the show. Probably my dad, because I've made a lot of decisions based on the way that he thinks. And we've traveled together and some stuff. But I think that honestly, like, it changes from day to day, right? Like there's always something to be learned from somebody. And like, you can read like right now I'm reading about Ben Franklin and I'm like, wow, Ben Franklin seems amazing. And then I started watching the Hemingway documentary and I'm like, whoa, Hemingway did all this cool stuff. So I don't know. I'm inspired constantly by people that do great things. And so it's really hard to narrow it down.
Yeah, fantastic answer. Love it. Jeff, listen, I've had a fantastic time on the interview. I'm sure that some of our audience is going to want to reach out to you, listen to your show, get more information, or possibly joint venture with you on a deal. Where can they reach out to you? Where can they get more information?
Yeah, so the thing that I'm most passionate about is the Last Life Ever philosophy. And so the best place to find me is actually in our private Facebook group for Last Life Ever. And it's free to join. It's just Last Life Ever private Facebook group. Or it just says Last Life Ever private group when you search it on Facebook. And it's we just hang out in there and try to encourage people to do the best things that they can with their lives. And since I'm in there a lot, it's easy to get my attention there.
Awesome stuff. Jeff, listen, thank you so much for carving out some time on Accelerated Investor today.
Oh, I appreciate you having me, Josh. Thanks for everything.
So, hey, I hope you really enjoyed that interview with Jeff. I had an absolute blast. I really enjoyed his energy, his enthusiasm. And I think, when your life has been pressed and you've been kind of dragged through the mud like Jeff and I both have with different cancer diagnosis, I think you realize that life can be short. You can get an amazing and crazy diagnosis that can completely change the trajectory of your life. So live your absolute best life right now. What's the best version of you that you can be? Go live that life right now. Don't wait. Go now. And of course, investing in long-term multifamily real estate is a great way to create passive income. And finally, looking to move into Puerto Rico. We certainly are as well. It's going to be fantastic. So listen, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, share it all over social media. Leave us a rating and a review. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode of Accelerated Real Estate Investor on either iTunes or YouTube. And let us know who you'd like us to have on the show next time. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful that you pay attention. I'm so grateful that you engage with me every week on the show. Don't forget to join our Facebook group, Accelerated Real Estate Investor on Facebook, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Hey, Josh here, and do you want to win a free Accelerated Investor t-shirt? All you have to do is give Accelerated Investor, our podcast, Accelerated Investor, a rating and a review on iTunes, okay? Do that now. Then send us a screenshot on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. What we're going to do then is every week we're going to pick our favorite rating and review, and we're going to send that person a free t-shirt and maybe, again, some other cool, fun stuff as well from Accelerated Investors. So Again, don't forget to take a screenshot. Leave a rating, review, take a screenshot, send it to us so we know exactly who you are. And then once a week, every week on the podcast, we will announce a new winner. Don't forget to take a screenshot and send it to us so we know exactly who you are. We'll announce a new winner every week.
You were just listening to the Accelerated Real Estate Investor Podcast with Josh Cantwell. If you enjoyed this episode and learned something new, help us build our community by leaving a review and 5-star rating on our iTunes podcast channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. To see passive investing opportunities, visit freelandventures.com/passive. To start your journey toward the lifestyle you've always dreamed of with multifamily apartments, apply for one-on-one coaching with Josh at joshcantwellcoaching.com.